Let me tell you a fable. A fable. So, I talk about this old greasy... Oh, cool. My new drag parts came in. There was no prep dragging this last weekend, and a friend of mine drove right into the front end of my car. Like, this is my little starter kit, no prep drag car, right? And he literally drove right into the side of my car and broke my bulkhead. Sweet. Yeah. We'll get that fixed later. Let me tell you a story. It's just a fable. In the beginning, for me, I was a little kid with a Cobra 25, and I had finagled a D104 off of somebody, and I ran into this. There's no one around here to fix nothing. No, there was. We had our own CV shop that was legit and everything. And the guy that ran it, his name was Mike Cope. K7QQP. Oh, look at this. He even sent me a little laminated cheat sheet for this radio. And he had sitting on his bench, one of the radios he had sitting on his bench. He had a Kenwood TS440. He actually happened to have this particular Kenwood TS440 sitting on his bench, which was a mother effer to track down, by the way. And, well, he had that 440, and then he had the 940, and then he had all the speaker and the external power supply. And anywho, one of the radios he had was a Kenwood tm-741. This radio, I love this radio. This is not his radio. I have no idea where his radio went. I've searched. I put the feelers out there in the universe, and I would have loved to acquired his radio, but he told me even at that time that radio was a delicate bag of wax stick. He goes, it's got push buttons in the front that break down. It's delicate. He wouldn't even let me touch it. He just, you gotta remember, I'm 44, and this is 30 years ago. I was 14 years old, I think. 12 or 13 when I first met him. Well, we go forward in life, and I ended up making a friendship with this guy. His name was Gary. Gary was an ex-rocket engineer from the 1990s, 80s, and he worked on several different missile systems, but he ended up doing test equipment certification and organization most of his life within the United States military complex. It's a fancy story or a fancy title for saying he was in charge of equipment and he worked on rockets. Primary job, MOS, whatever. Gary, the reason I met Gary is because we were talking one night on the 2-meter, and he was telling me about this Kenwood, and I said, man, I'd sure love to have me one of them one of these days. They're really hard to find, and they're way outside my price range, because that was back when I would take literally 2 pennies and be rubbing them together. Like seriously, I'd be like, oh my God, I managed to save a penny from last paycheck. Oh wow, hey, woo, yeah, I'm rich. This is, yeah, a long time ago, 14, 15 years ago now. He had one of these, and the display was all effed up on it. So, him being smarter at electronics than I'll ever be, was kind enough to let me come with him, and we sat down and we very meticulously took this faceplate apart completely. And you would not believe the everlasting gobstopper technology that's in here to make all these push buttons work. I mean, we've got 3 different styles of foam that are in. There's some. There is some lovely tech that is going on inside this faceplate to make this work. Now you got to remember, back in the day, this was frickin' novel. Frickin' novel, this technology. It was this small. It was multi-band. It had tone in it. It had everything in it at that time. This was their Cadillac flagship station flying, radio. And it was remote faced. I have the whole kit for this radio. It's actually sitting right over there next to that Kenwood TS-440. This radio sat on my personal station that sits next to my giant leather recliner in the house that I love to play video games in. Sat right there forever. When Gary was coming to the end of his life, he ended up getting fibrosis in his lungs. He called me up and says, "Man, I'm not doing well." And I said, "Yeah, I know, Gary. I know." And he goes, No, I'm really not doing well." He goes, "Come on over here. I got a couple things I want to sell you." So I went over and I bought this radio from Gary. And it's got a lot of fond memories to me for it. There's a problem with this radio, and it lies right here in this memory battery. The memory battery that was in this radio leaked. It finally split and leaked. I turned it off one day, and I come back the next morning, go to turn the radio back on, and this battery had let out enough electronic jism overnight that it ran down and it wiped out the processor that's down here on the board. It's a very, very common known problem. Well, I happen to love the simplicity of this radio. This is back when radios were easy to use and you didn't have to interface with them with the computer to get them to do the most simplistic tasks, like change frequency. You say, "Well, what are you talking about? Yeah, that's not how this works." Well, how do I have 30 Baofangs and not one of them is sitting in one of their charger units? Well, we'll just say, look at the Baofeng, for example. You got to be a NASA scientist or plug it into a computer to program the thing. Like, this is the last generation of the programmable handheld, in my opinion. I mean, it kind of. This is simplistic. Has a designated call button that I can find while driving. Designated VFO, designated memory, designated megahertz and frequency lock. I can find it while driving. It's got a designated tone, DTMS. If I want to mute, low, medium, and high, it's very easily able to find the buttons. It's a shame this thing is so delicate. Well, this radio is dead. Dead. Come on, I got mad soldering skills, and I got even more soldering equipment than this. And I got down in here and I looked at how corroded the board was. It was working on electronic pixies from heaven, because when I turned it off, the connections were severed. Done. So, my friend Zane, who's awesome, absolutely love this guy. He's been such a good friend to me, and I've always tried to return the favor, even though I'm a pain in the ass dickhead to deal with. I say, "Zane, we are on the hunt. We are on the hunt for a replacement radio for me to repair this one, because I'm not going to let this thing die. I bought this thing from Gary on his deathbed, and it carries a lot of sentimental value to me, a lot. And so we go to Hamfests, and there's always the dude that has just the piece of equipment that you want, but he wants an entire earthbound amount of money too much for it. I remember right after this died, I went to Puyallup. The Puyallup Hamfest, which is at the Puyallup State Fair Center in Seattle, Washington. Well, it's in the Puyallup itself. No, Puyallup's different than Seattle, man. Is it really? I guess it is, but anyhow, that's what everybody calls the Seattle Hamfest, is down there in Puyallup. And there was the most meticulously cleaned up Kenwood 741 there ever. I mean, it looked like it just slid the plastic condom wrappers off it from Kenwood, right? And the guy wanted over $1,000 for it. And the right brain and the left brain kicked in, and the right brain says, "Ooh, let's buy that, and we'll just plug my faceplate into it." Yay! Then the left brain kicked in and says, "Yeah, let's do that. But what about your ICOM 2730 you have sitting at home? And all your other really cool kick-ass ham radios that you never use?" And I went, "Don't need it." And I walked on. Well, my buddy Zane is one of these kind of guys that 3 years, 6 months, 2 days, and 4 weeks ago, he'll go, "Hey, you remember that time that you said you needed 100 through 200 megahertz 10-watt slug?" "Yeah." "Well, here's one right here. I found it for you at a Hamfest. It was like $5. I love the highly organized head that this man has. It's amazing. Amazing. Well, here a few weeks ago, he went to a Hamfest and he was able to find this for not free and not a steal, but a fairly reasonable price unit. And when I mean reasonable, is I mean like, it's a thing. We have to pay money for it. That's life. And it's not absurdly priced like it wasn't $1,000. The guy that sold this to my friend Zane, me and him, know who you are. I do believe the conversation went down that you guys would like to remain anonymous. I understand that. Wow, this thing is minty mint on the inside. Look at that. Wow, mint. Like, in really good shape. So I want to come out here and I want to publicly say thank you for helping me keep this dream alive with this radio. Your radio is going to go to a home where it's loved. And I want to say thank you. Now, what I've got to do is basically rip this whole thing apart, and I'm going to pull parts out of this one. Like, see this DTMF board card? This one here has got cold solder joints somewhere around in here, or broken traces from when the battery melted down. This thing's in pretty good shape. I think I'm going to pull my unicorn horn 10 meter, 11 meter module out of here and stick it in here. I wanted to tell you guys the fable of the tm-741a and my absolute love and affection for it for years. Even though it's not the fastest car, the hottest girl, her tits might start being able to sag a little bit. Maybe her nipples are getting a little big from having babies pull on them all these years. Who knows? Who knows? The moral of the story is, this is my kind of dirty girl, and she's willing to do whatever I ask her to do, whenever I ask her to do it. And I'm glad that I'm going to be able to take parts from this or take parts from that and keep that radio alive in some way. Because there's a ton of sentimental value in that. A ton. This should light up. These should turn. Well, the saga continues. I'm going to throw this whole story, how it started and where I'm currently at, out to you guys on the inner boob, and let's see where this goes. Now, I'm serious now. Maybe one of you guys, and don't suggest Mr. Carlson's lab, this isn't what he does. Maybe one of you guys out there in YouTube land knows the Kenwood 441 or 741a whisperer, right? Okay, maybe one of you guys out there knows the dude that knows the dude that knows how to give a tug rub job to one of these things just better than anybody else in the country. And as you can tell, I'm willing to do an awful lot to try and fix this radio. A lot of guys probably would have given up on this. I've got, every module that they made for this radio times 2. Yeah, maybe one of you guys out there knows the dude or knows the guy or knows exactly what problem I'm having with this radio, and you'll be kind enough to either hook me up with him or you'll reach out to me and tell me what's going on with this unit or that other unit. This unit, it needs a new processing board. That other unit, don't know. It just showed up. I was told that it was powered up and running on purchase, so we don't know. Like I said, comments are left open below, and maybe one of you guys in my amateur community following, which is large, will know where I should head next, because I am not going to take the time to disassemble that other unit or this unit to that level and try and figure out what's going on. I want to know the guy that can say, go here, go look at this, and go try this, and it'd be done. So, hey, another TM-741 manual. Someday, my little friend, someday.